There's a point in your spiritual journey where the universe stops whispering and starts roaring. A point where the light you've been chasing suddenly fades, and you find yourself standing at the entrance of something far older, far deeper, far more powerful than anything you've ever encountered. This is the beginning of the dark awakening, the moment your shadow stops hiding and starts guiding. Most people misunderstand this phase. They think darkness means danger, punishment, or destruction. But in reality, when darkness arrives, it's because your soul is ready for the truth. Not the comfortable truth you meditate to, but the raw truth that unlocks your shadow power, the part of you that was buried, silenced, or feared your entire life. Imagine the video opening with me walking into an ancient underground temple lit only by torches, the air vibrating like the breath of something unseen. I whisper, if you're experiencing these 7 signs, your shadow is waking up and your true power is emerging. The flame flares, the ground shakes. That instant hook makes millions lean in, because they feel the truth of it in their bones. The first dark awakening sign is the collapse of the false light, when everything you've been doing to stay positive suddenly stops working. Affirmations feel empty. Meditation feels hollow. Gratitude lists feel fake. You start feeling this deep internal resistance to anything superficial. And this is where most people panic. But what's really happening is your soul is rejecting spiritual bypassing. You can't raise your vibration by avoiding your wounds. You can't awaken your power by hiding your shadow. The collapse of false light is the moment your spirit demands depth over positivity, truth over comfort, healing over pretending. It's the beginning of becoming someone real. And that begs the question, how much of your positivity was actually fear in disguise? The second sign your shadow is awakening is the rise of the unexplained emotional storm. You feel random waves of anger, grief, sadness, desire, frustration, emptiness sometimes, all in the same day. You're not losing control, you're releasing control. Your shadow is surfacing the emotions you buried long ago, the ones you didn't have the strength to process before. Traumas, abandonment wounds, shame, rejection, betrayals, moments of humiliation, pieces of yourself you rejected so you could survive. These emotions aren't attacking you, they're trying to free you. Your shadow knows that you cannot step into your power while carrying emotional debts, so it drags them to the surface. And you face them not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough. The third sign is the sudden detachment from your old identity. You start feeling like the you used to be is dissolving. Things that once defined you no longer fit. The people you used to care about feel distant. The goals you once wanted feel meaningless. Your old self becomes a costume you can't wear anymore. This is soul-level evolution. Your shadow has decided to overwrite the identity built from fear, approval, and conditioning and replace it with an identity built from truth. But this shift feels like death before it feels like rebirth. You might stare at yourself in the mirror and feel like you're looking at a stranger. And that's exactly the point. The stranger is the mask. The familiar one, the one you're about to meet, is your shadow self rising. The fourth dark awakening sign is you start seeing through people instantly. You notice manipulation behind kindness, insecurity behind arrogance, trauma behind anger, emptiness behind confidence. Your intuition stops being a whisper and becomes a blade. You sense lies without proof. You detect motives before actions. You feel the energy beneath the words people speak. This is shadow sight. When the shadow awakens, it gives you the eyes you needed all along, the eyes that protect you, guide you, awaken you. This ability scares people, but it doesn't scare you, because deep down you always sensed you were meant to see more than others do. The fifth sign is you're pulled towards solitude, darkness, silence. Not because you're depressed, but because your soul is calling you into the cave where you meet your real self. You start craving isolation. The world feels too loud. Drama feels stupid. Noise feels painful. You want darkness because darkness is where truth echoes the loudest. This solitude is sacred. It's the womb of transformation. Your shadow knows that no one can accompany you into the place where you're about to transform. You must step into the inner darkness alone but not lonely, because your shadow self is waiting for you there. The sixth sign is you start confronting your own patterns brutally. You notice your toxic habits, your self-sabotage, your fears, your jealousy, your insecurities. Not with shame but with precision. Your shadow isn't punishing you. It's teaching you. It's showing you the architecture of your wounds so you can rebuild yourself with power instead of fear. This self-confrontation is the most sacred moment of your awakening when you finally stop running from yourself. And the seventh sign, the most powerful, is you begin feeling a strange, dangerous, beautiful sense of power rising. Not ego, not dominance, something deeper, something unseen, something that whispers, you are never weak, you are unawakened. This power feels like fire spreading through every part of your soul. It feels like the moment before lightning strikes. It feels like remembering who you were before life dimmed you. Before we continue, let me ask you something only someone on this path can answer. What if the darkness you fear is actually the part of you that remembers your true strength?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Once the dark awakening begins, something inside you starts shifting so dramatically that you can't pretend you're the same person anymore. It's not a soft, gentle shift. It's raw. It's disruptive. It's like an internal earthquake rearranging your soul. You feel as though you're being stripped, exposed, emptied, and at the same time, sharpened. This is the stage where your shadow stops being a force pulling you down and begins to rise like a hidden king reclaiming its throne. But here's the thing, your shadow doesn't rise with light, peace, and angelic warmth. It rises with fire, with truth, with confrontation, with the kind of clarity that makes you uncomfortable because it demands honesty you've avoided for years. Imagine the video cutting to me standing in a narrow stone corridor lit only by a single torch, shadows twisting on the walls like they're alive. I look straight into the camera and say, when your shadow awakens, you're not being punished, you're being rebuilt. The torch erupts into a tall flame. Dust falls from the ceiling. That's the moment viewers realize we're not just talking about awakening. We're talking about rebirth through darkness. One of the first shifts in this stage is the acceptance of your own darkness without shame. You stop trying to be the good person everyone wanted you to be. You stop pretending you're always peaceful, kind, forgiving, calm, spiritual. You admit your jealousy, your anger, your resentment, your fears, your desires. Your shadow forces you to own every part of yourself you hid to avoid judgment. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop denying your darkness is the moment you start regaining your strength. Because denial drains you, but self-ownership fuels you. You begin to realize your darkness never made you broken, it made you human. And your shadow power lies in integrating, not rejecting, the parts of yourself you were taught to hide. Then comes the razor-sharp clarity that cuts through illusions you once believed. You look at your life, your past, your relationships, and you finally see the truth. You understand why certain people hurt you, why you stayed in places where your soul was dying, why you repeated the same patterns, why you gave too much, why you accepted too little. This clarity can feel brutal because it exposes the ways you betrayed yourself, but it also frees you, because once you see the truth, you can't fall for lies, especially your own. The next transformation is the awakening of inner boundaries, boundaries that come from the soul, not the mind. You stop apologizing for having needs. You stop explaining why you deserve respect. You stop tolerating behavior that drains or diminishes you. You stop letting guilt convince you to accept what wounds you. Your shadow teaches you to say no with strength, enough with authority, and I'm done with finality. These boundaries aren't walls, they're protection spells crafted from your self-worth. Then comes the detachment from approval and validation. This is the moment your shadow frees you from the prison of people-pleasing. You no longer mold yourself to fit others' expectations. You no longer beg for acceptance. You no longer shapeshift to avoid conflict. You no longer seek permission to be yourself. You become your own authority. And this kind of inner liberation terrifies those who once controlled you because they can't manipulate someone who owns their shadow. Another powerful shift is your intuition becomes feral, untamed, instinctual, and unnervingly accurate. You don't just sense energy, you read it. You don't just feel intentions, you decode them. Yours sharpens your perception, giving you the ability to detect danger, deception, and opportunity faster than ever. It's like developing psychic night vision. This intuitive ferocity protects you, guides you, and reveals truths your conscious mind can't articulate yet. Then you enter the stage of calculated emotional power. You stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. You no longer let people trigger you into chaos. You no longer hand your peace away. You no longer fight battles not worth your energy. You learn the art of strategic silence, emotional discipline, and psychological strength. You become someone who is calm not because life is easy but because you're powerful. And finally, perhaps the most important sign, you begin feeling the first waves of your true shadow power rising. It feels like fire in your gut, like steel in your spine, like lightning behind your eyes. You feel yourself becoming harder to manipulate, harder to intimidate, harder to deceive. You feel more alive, more aware, more sovereign. You're not turning into a darker version of yourself, you're becoming a whole version of yourself. So let me ask you a question only someone truly awakening can answer. If you stop running from your darkness, what version of yourself do you think is waiting on the other side? There comes a moment in the dark awakening where the inner transformation stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something happening through you. It's like crossing a threshold where your shadow once feared, rejected, buried steps forward and becomes a fully activated force in your consciousness. You no longer feel like you're fighting darkness. You feel like you're wielding it. You begin to realize that the power you've been searching for your entire life wasn't in light alone, it was in the parts of yourself you were once too afraid to explore. Imagine the video cutting to a vast cavern deep beneath the earth, the ceiling glowing with strange bioluminescent symbols. I stand in the center as a circle of shadows swirl around me like living smoke. I say, once your shadow rises, your reality shifts not because the world changes, but because you finally become the one changing it. The symbols ignite. The shadows snap toward me and vanish into my chest. This is the moment people watching feel chills because they recognize their own transformation reflected in that imagery. What are the first signs you've crossed into this mastery stage is your triggers stop controlling you and start teaching you. When someone disrespects you, you don't collapse. When someone abandons you, you don't chase. When someone lies, you don't internalize it. Instead, you watch your emotional reactions like a scientist studying data. You begin recognizing patterns immediately. This feeling isn't about them. It's about an old wound I'm finally strong enough to confront. Triggers become revelations. Pain becomes instruction. Your shadow becomes the mentor the light alone could never be. And that shift from emotional reactivity to emotional intelligence is a doorway to immense inner power. Think about this deeply. What would your life look like if your emotions no longer controlled the decisions that shaped your destiny? Another sign is your perception of people becomes terrifyingly accurate. You start seeing who is genuine, who is using you, who is threatened by you, who is secretly competing with you, who loves you deeply, and who only wants your energy but not your growth. You read micro-expressions, tone shifts, agendas, emotional inconsistencies. You see the truth beneath the masks. And this doesn't make you cynical, it makes you sovereign. Your shadow gives you X-ray vision for the soul, and this clarity protects you from predators, manipulators, and energy parasites better than any boundary ever could. Then comes the awakening of inner dominance, not dominance over yourself. You stop being manipulated by guilt, fear, loneliness, or insecurity. You stop folding under pressure. You stop collapsing when life tests you. You stand taller even when everything inside you is shaking. This inner dominance shows up in your posture, your voice, your decisions, your presence. People feel it. Some respect it. Some fear it. Some try to challenge it, but they fail because you're no longer operating from weakness. You're operating from integrated power. Another profound shift is your relationship with fear transforms completely. Instead of running from fear, you study it. Instead of suppressing fear, you use it as fuel. You no longer avoid difficult conversations, difficult choices, or difficult truths. You lean into them. You embrace the discomfort that once paralyzed you. And here is the secret only the awakened understand. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the alliance with fear. When your shadow awakens, fear becomes an ally that sharpens your instincts and strengthens your intuition. You learn that fear is not a stop sign, it's a compass pointing to your next evolution. Then comes the transmutation of your anger. This is powerful. Instead of exploding outward or imploding inward, your anger becomes controlled fire. It helps you set boundaries. It helps you walk away. It helps you demand respect. It helps you speak truth. It helps you cut ties that harm your spirit. Anger stops being chaotic and becomes strategic. This is shadow mastery, using raw emotion as a tool instead of a weapon against yourself. Another sign is your silence becomes more powerful than your words. You don't argue to prove your worth. You don't explain your boundaries. You don't defend your decisions against people committed to misunderstanding you. You realize your energy speaks louder than your explanations. Silence becomes your armor, your clarity, your weapon. And by choosing silence, you reclaim power that others used to take from you. And finally, the most profound transformation in this stage, you begin rewriting your destiny consciously. You stop living life on autopilot. You stop letting trauma dictate your path. You stop letting fear choose your relationships. You stop letting society define your identity. Instead, you start sculpting your reality with intention, precision, and intuition. You feel your shadow and your light merging, creating a version of you that is unstoppable, unshakable, untouchable. So let me ask you a question that only someone stepping into their shadow power can truly answer. If you could fully shape your destiny from this point forward, what would you dare to become? There comes a moment in every dark awakening when the pressure stops crushing you and starts forging you. The chaos you went through, the emotional storms, the identity deaths, the revelations, the confrontations, they weren't breaking you down. They were burning away every part of you that wasn't aligned with your true nature. And when the final layer of resistance dissolves, something extraordinary happens. You don't just feel awakened, you feel reborn. Not as the polished, light-chasing version of yourself you tried to be for years, but as the whole integrated, powerful being you were always meant to become. Imagine the video cutting to an ancient throne room carved into a mountain, massive dim torches casting shadows that move like serpents. I'm standing in the center, an enormous stone door slowly opening behind me. Light and darkness swirl into a vortex, merging into a single beam that shoots upward. I say, this is the moment your shadow stops haunting you and starts serving you. And suddenly, millions watching understand. This isn't about darkness or light anymore, it's about becoming the full spectrum of your soul. One of the first signs you've mastered your shadow is you stop seeking permission to exist as your true self. You no longer water down your personality. You no longer dilute your truth. You no longer pretend to be smaller, softer, or simpler to make others comfortable. You stop negotiating your authenticity for acceptance. You speak with clarity. You move with intention. You show up as yourself without apology. And as this happens, something fascinating unfolds. People who once walked over you now watch you with caution, admiration, or confusion. Your shadow has reclaimed the parts of you that used to hide. You are no longer trying to fit in, you are rising above. The next sign is you master the art of controlled power. Not rage, not dominance, not ego. Something deeper. Something calm. You start realizing that power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't demand attention. A true power is steady, quiet, strategic. You feel it in your spine when you set a boundary. You feel it in your chest when you choose yourself. You feel it in your intuition when you walk away from anything that no longer serves your evolution. Your shadow teaches you that strength doesn't come from force, it comes from self-respect. Another transformation is your relationship with pain evolves. Pain no longer terrifies you. You don't run from discomfort or fight every negative emotion. You meet pain with awareness. You ask what it's trying to teach you. You understand its purpose. Pain becomes a compass, not a punishment. It shows you where healing must happen, where your power is leaking, where you're still abandoning yourself. And when you stop fearing pain, life stops controlling you. Your shadow has turned suffering into wisdom. You'll also notice your presence becomes undeniable. When you walk into a room, energy shifts. Some people feel inspired, some feel intimidated, some feel exposed. Your presence reflects their truth back to them, and not everyone likes what they see. But this is your shadow mastery. Your aura no longer hides your depth. You've become someone who carries both light and darkness with elegance and balance. That combination creates gravity. People are pulled toward you without knowing why. Another powerful change is you start creating your reality intentionally. Not from fantasy, but from alignment. The relationships you accept reflect your worth. The opportunities you pursue reflect your courage. The boundaries you set reflect your evolution. You stop living reactively and start living architecturally, crafting your life with awareness. You ask yourself, does this amplify my power or diminish it? Does this align with my truth or betray it? And your shadow guides you toward choices that build your destiny piece by piece. As you rise further, you'll enter the state of emotional sovereignty. You no longer absorb others' pain as your own. You no longer internalize their criticism. You no longer carry guilt that isn't yours. You learn to stand in your emotional center, even when others try to pull you into their chaos. You become the calm in every storm, not because storms don't affect you, but because you've mastered the world within. This is the true core of shadow integration, becoming unshakable. And then the final shift, you feel both guided and self-guided at the same time. You trust your intuition, your instincts, your higher knowing. You feel supported by something greater than yourself, yet rooted deeply in your own authority. You become a vessel for destiny and the director of your own fate simultaneously. This balance is the hallmark of a fully awakened shadow. So let me ask you one last question, the question that defines everything that comes after this moment. Now that you've unlocked your shadow power, what impossible thing will you dare to become? Have you noticed how often you've been misunderstood? How your intentions are questioned, how your silence makes people uncomfortable, how your confidence is mistaken for arrogance. That's not an accident. That's a reflection of how rare your frequency is. You're not just outside the box, you were never in it, and the world doesn't know what to do with people who don't play by its rules. But the deeper reason you've been feared is because deep down, people know you can't be controlled. You've tasted freedom in ways most haven't even imagined. And once someone sees that in you, they either try to silence it or follow it. This is why your power has been hidden, even from yourself. Because if you had felt it in full too soon, it might have consumed you. The universe wrapped it in layers of pain, loss, confusion, because only someone who has earned their inner clarity can wield this energy with balance. You had to be humbled. You had to be cracked open, and not once, but many times. Because dark power is not about domination, it's about integration. It's about walking through your own shadows so completely that you can hold space for others without judgment. It's about being the one who sees both the monster and the soul in someone and loves them both. But make no mistake, your path is not small. You didn't come here just to survive or play it safe. You came here to awaken the world, not through preaching, not through force, but through embodiment. The more you live your truth, the more others remember theirs. The more you stop hiding, the more others realize it's safe to be real. That's how revolutions start, not through violence, but through vibrational defiance. Through a single soul who refuses to be anything other than what they are. And right now, the world is starving for that realness. People are tired of pretending, tired of surface-level spirituality, tired of bypassing pain in the name of positivity. They need someone who has walked both worlds, the light and the dark, and can guide them through the mess without flinching. That someone is you. And not because you're perfect, but because you've bled truth. You've lost everything and found yourself. You've been to the edge and didn't fall. Or maybe you did, but you climbed back up. That's what makes you the real thing.